You're listening to Eat, Play, Sex with Dr. Kat, the place to uplevel that sexy life of yours, with expert talk on sex, love, and nutrition.
So I think a lot of us hear the word boundaries, and I listen to so many experts in relationships, and I find that while everyone has some good things to say about boundaries, some of what I hear actually translates to being rigid and very rigid. Like, these are the rules of boundaries. This is what you do. Get the fuck out. They do this. You're out. And I'm like, like, I don't know if everybody needs, like, everybody deserves love and healthy relationships. But if we keep treating, every quote unquote avoidant person like they're not worthy of love, like, how can we actually create healthy relationships? So how do you help people to identify healthy boundaries for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I see that a lot, this hardening of people who, for a majority of their life, acted like a doormat. And then they're like, okay, I read the book, I saw the Instagram quotes, and suddenly they create a wall and they go to the other extreme where they don't let anyone in, and anyone who hurts them or triggers them, they're out. That is not a healthy boundary system. That is a defense mechanism. So you just swung to the other pendulum, but your reaction to someone hurting you or breaching your boundary is just different. It doesn't mean that you've actually created a healthy boundary.
Yeah.
And so I think that another thing that we do is understanding these labels, right? Attachment theory is super hot and popular, but we can actually use that as a way of judging and pathologizing people.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that a lot.
Yep.
You're an avoidant, like, you're terrible. No, it's
date you. Yeah.
It's a framework to help you understand your relationship and relationships with others. It's supposed to be a tool, not a way of labeling and othering people. And so I think the very first thing is to get really clear on what are the boundaries that you struggle with, and is it boundaries with other people? Is it boundaries with yourself, your own self-discipline? Like, for example, are you always late? That's a boundary issue with yourself, right? And understanding what are the categories. Are they physical boundaries? Are they emotional boundaries? Are they intellectual boundaries? And you could just, Google this list of the different types of boundaries to understand. And then, I would do it like bit by bit. You're not going to go from not ever being able to voice your needs and your limits to suddenly being the boundary queen. I would start small and be like, okay, like, here are three areas where I'm not speaking my truth, and I'm going to work on them. And I probably wouldn't, tackle the relationship with your father right away, right? Do something smaller. Maybe it's your I don't know, your roommate that keeps borrowing your favorite sweater, and you're like, you learn a method of maybe use nonviolent communication to communicate why you don't want her to do that. Start with these smaller things, and then you start building your skill set and your confidence, and then you could tackle the more higher risk relationships and boundary breaking.
That's so good. And I think even developing the skill of learning what your limit is or what your truth is, like you said, I used to get so jumbled in the head, like when it would come to decisions, because I, growing up, would make decisions through other people and what other people needed. So I was very good at being sensitive to everybody else. But when it came into me tuning into what I needed, I would dissociate. I would just go jumble, jumble, jumble in my head. And I'd be like, I literally can't think. And so even that is a skill, to figure out what your limit of what you're available or what you want is before you can even communicate it.
Yeah. And what I find often with people who come to Breakup Bootcamp and overgivers is they're so quick to react to other people's wants and needs and agendas that they'll go and do it because it's so habitual, and then they'll feel resentment afterwards. So if that's the case, I would really encourage just learning how to practice to pause and even buy time. And that might mean you say, oh, let me think about that. I'm going to get back to you. Just even being able to practice saying that, and then giving yourself the time so you could cognitively process, and also process, well, where am I feeling in the body? Is my chest feeling tight? Well, why is that? Oh, I have anxiety about this. I actually don't want it. And really stopping, like, what do I want? Ideally, what do I want? And maybe
Mhm.
not even like, am I going to get it? Don't even look at the reality. What do you actually want and desire? Start
Yeah.
from there, versus what people do is they start from the halfway point of what they think they might be able to get, but might not really, right? It's just like when you're negotiating a contract, you want, say, $100,000. You
Yeah.
don't go in and be like, well, I probably can only get 35. So yeah, how about 30? And then you
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
30 and then you're pissed. You go
Yeah.
in with 100. Maybe you'll get down to 75, but you don't
Yeah.
short sell yourself down to like the very bare minimum.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But it's almost like we would rather preserve the connection with whoever it is versus allow ourselves to take up space and ask for what it is that we want, and resentment or anger being that us stepping on our boundaries is like a really good indication that we just shortchanged ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel that for those who do feel a lot of guilt,
Mm,
and wanting to preserve that connection,
yeah.
something to remind yourself is the people who truly do care and love you,
Mhm.
they're not going to stop loving you because you're drawing a limit. They might feel uncomfortable because it's a different dynamic. It's human nature
Yeah,
to
sure,
want to
sure.
preserve the status quo, but they're not going to require you to abandon your values. And if someone is, then you have to really pause and assess, is that relationship the right relationship right now in your life?
Oof.
And that might mean you take a pause. That might mean that you take a step back from some people. But if
Mhm.
someone is only being in harmony with you, because you're doing things on their terms, so it benefits them, well, don't know if that's a very sustainable relationship.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine it would be because you're giving and extending so much more energy, and that's exhausting. We want
Yeah.
relationships that refuel us rather than just drain us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Lovers, thank you again for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, hit subscribe and head over to eatplaysex.com to connect with me and grab my sexy guides. Because my goal here is to get you to eat, play, and sex better so you can improve your sex life, which will improve every aspect of your life. Until next time, keep it sexy.